In this lesson, we'll discuss using linked CAD files, specifically linking in architectural elevations. Now, in previous lessons, we looked at linking in floor plans, and we discussed using Revit as a master file to manage these AutoCAD 2D files. Reason we would do that is we can organize these 2D files in a 3D format so we can actually see a model. So for example, what you're looking at now is a flat 2D floor plan, basically a CAD file that's been referenced in. To see this in 3D and see if there's multiple levels or floor plans, let's go to the actual house on the top of the Revit screen to bring up my default 3D view. And I can see in my default 3D view, I have two flat 2D floor plans, if you will, that are referenced in. And if I had a third floor, a fourth floor, or a roof, or a basement, I could bring those in and associate those to the appropriate level. Well, the next step is to actually bring in the elevations, the north, the south, east, west, or front, back, left, and right, depending on your terminology. To do that, we'll want to go to the elevation for which we're bringing in that 2D CAD file. Let's go to the north elevation. So in your project browser on the left, double-click north. Now, the first thing we need to tell Revit is what plane we want to bring this elevation in on. So in a previous lesson, we created grid lines associated to the grids that were in the 2D CAD files we linked in. Well, we want to tell Revit now which grid we want to place this elevation on. To do that, go to the Architecture tab, and all the way to the right in the Work Plane panel, click Set. It will now ask us what plane or grid you want to align this to. Click Name, then click the drop-down, and then click Grid A, and then OK. This will be the active work plane. It's associated with Grid A, so the elevation I bring in will sit on that work plane in line with Grid A. Now, if things don't align or you miss a step or something else isn't correctly configured, we can always use the Align tool. Now let's insert in, or in this case, we'll link in the actual north elevation 2D CAD file. So let's go to the Insert tab, click Link CAD, and then browse to the directory of your files for this class. Choose the north elevation or elevation north, and then verify colors are set to black and white. We're going to bring in all the layers, auto detect units, uncheck mark correct lines. Positioning is auto center to center. We're going to align this at level 1 and orient the view. Click Open. And what happens now is this 2D elevation view is brought in and placed on the Grid A plane. Now, if something doesn't go right, for example, if you look at my screen and I zoom in, I can see my horizontal levels for floor 1, floor 2, for example, don't quite match what I have in my Revit model. So the first thing I would want to do is align them. So I'm going to align the floor 2 level from the imported elevation with the level 2 level in my Revit file. So to do that, go to the Modify tab on your ribbon. Then in the middle in Modify, click Align. The first thing I want to pick is what do I want to align to? Well, I want to align to my level 2 that I created in the Revit project, so I'll click it. Second thing is, what do I need to move or align? In this case, I'll click the level 2 or floor 2 level line from the imported CAD file. And then what it does is it actually aligns those two. Another step that I would want to do for cleanup, and I'm going to kind of omit it for this example, would be to readjust my levels. So my level 1, I would want to drop down a little bit so it's in line with the entry level that's placed here in the CAD file. Let's look at this in 3D to see exactly where it's placed. But first, let's end the Align tool. Click Modify, and then click the default 3D view. And as I can see here, the actual elevation wasn't placed correctly. It should be all the way to the right, aligned with Grid A. So what I need to do now is align this. But it can be a little difficult to do it from the 3D view. What I need to do is go to another elevation and do the aligning there. Now, I can't do it from the north elevation because I'm looking parallel at the face of the actual elevation. So I'm going to go to one of the other elevations, such as the east elevation. So double-click east, and I can see the vertical line in the middle is that actual elevation I linked in. And it's not aligned to Grid A. Grid A is over here on the right. So let's use the Align tool again and align the elevation to Grid A. To do that, go to the Modify tab, then go to Align under Modify, and then the first thing is I want to pick what I'm aligning to, in this case Grid A. So select the vertical line by Grid A, then select the vertical line in the middle. And it doesn't matter which part of this you select, because if you hover over it, it'll show you it's the whole referenced north elevation. And then select it, and it will align that elevation now with Grid A. Click Modify to end the Align tool. And now let's go back to our 3D view again. Now I can see if I rotate my cube a little bit, I'm almost there, that I have this now aligned on the right plane, in this case Grid A, but now it's shifted a little bit. So here I can go back to the north elevation. Just double click north elevation on the left in the project browser, zoom out, and I could see my grid lines don't quite match. So I need to shift this to the right or the left. So again, I'm going to use my Align tool. Go to Modify, then Align. And the first thing I want to pick is what I'm aligning to. Well, I'm going to select this vertical line represented by Grid 5, or you could pick 6 or 4 or any of the others. But make sure you pick the one that you drew in the drawing, not the one from the imported CAD file. Go ahead and click it. Now what I'll do is I'll mouse over the grid line from the imported CAD file, in this case the actual elevation north drawing file that's linked. Go ahead and click it, and the elevation shifts now right or left depending on your view. Click Modify, and finally, go ahead and click the default 3D view again. And now I can see this elevation is in line with that side, in this case the north side of the actual building. And then I would start to repeat the process again. So if I wanted to bring in the south elevation, I would go to the south elevation and then set the actual default plane to the other grid, in this case the letter J on the other side, and then insert in. In this case, we're linking the actual 2D CAD file to our Revit model. So in summary, what we looked at in this lesson was how to use various CAD files and linking them in, specifically architectural elevations, into our Revit master file. We looked at how to set the current plane, aligning it to a grid that we created from our floor plans that were linked in. And then we used the linked 2D CAD tool to link in our 2D CAD files into our existing Revit master model.